Hello.
Welcome back to our
Hey.
channel.
Welcome back to our channel. This is JA Millionaire here with myself, Jasmine, and Angelica. On this channel, woo! On this channel, you are following two ambitious Latina women who have defied all of the odds, and we're still defying them. So we like to talk about some of our own experiences, things that we're still constantly working on, and there's nothing off limits. We talk about finances, relationships, childhood trauma, you name it.
Yeah.
We're going to cover it all. And our goal with this is to hopefully inspire women from underprivileged backgrounds to go after your dreams, because if we could do it, you can do it. So I'm Jazmin. I am first generation Mexican American, born to a single mother. I took myself from poverty to college graduate, six-figure earner, solo traveler, now multiple business owner. And I'll let Angelica introduce herself.
Hey everyone. I come from a background of two parents being incarcerated my whole life for selling drugs, and I raised both of my siblings. I've been in and out of child protective services throughout my whole life, and I aged out at 18. And as Jasmine, I am also a college graduate, and I do have a master's degree. I just finished that, and I am working on my business also. So we are just two people learning how to do entrepreneurial things and breaking all these standards and walls that have always been there, because we were just programmed to think a certain way. So we're just breaking through those barriers and helping other women achieve the same thing.
Yes, yes. And on that point, you just totally reminded me in this today's topic, we're going to be talking about relationships. But before we go into that, just something you said made me remember how, like when I was younger, I know this is so off the wall, but it's just the way you said it. My I remember hearing this stigma about Latins. I know this is going to be controversial, but I heard these stigmas from a very young age. And I remember telling my mom I was really embarrassed. I know this is so bad. I was really embarrassed to tell people I was Latina, because they had such a bad stereotypes about. And I this is you're talking about somebody who was in elementary, junior high, who was already starting to hear the stereotypes. And I remember my mom putting me aside, and she said, if you think that's what people think of Latinas, or in my case, Mexican women, why don't you prove them wrong? And that stuck with me. And I am still going like, you're right, mom. We are gonna turn around these stereotypes. And this here, me and Angelica, this is what Latina women look like. This
Yeah.
is the new standard.
It really is. You don't have to be, we don't have to be a teenage pregnant person, woman, whatever people identify as these days, with six children. Like, that's doesn't have to be our dreams. And that's what we were programmed to believe. I do have two younger sisters that are younger teenage mothers, and they're barely going to college and trying to figure it out for themselves. And it's very hard when you grow up with a big family and you have baby showers every month. So to your point, yes, it's hard.
Yes. So we decided to take matters into our own hands and write our own narrative. And so today we wanted to talk about relationships, and I'm really excited about this subject. And I've talked to some of the people who watch our show that are really excited about this show too, this particular episode, because we are going to be talking about the juicy subject of relationships. And Angelica is going to share with us her mindset of where her mindset was when she met her husband and how she met her husband. And I think for all of us, again, me too, single ladies here, would love to hear how she bagged such a successful man. and
Oh,
then and then I'm going to go into my exciting trials and tribulations as a single woman. So take it away,
I'm excited
Angelica.
for this chapter. I really am. I mean, I think for most of our viewers, we've been trying to keep up with, good topics and things like that, like where we are. And I'm excited to get into this. So I met my husband 5 years ago. I was 25 years old. I just got out of a breakup. I was with another Latino man who had already had a child, and I went through, this is my second domestic violence relationship, right? And so I got out of it earlier than the first one. I left. I was like, I don't care what side of the story you give. I want out. I left the house. I left all of it. And I know I lost 20 pounds, and I was like, I'll never be in this position again. I'll never put myself in the position to be this weak ever again just because I saw it growing up. Um, so I then got into my apartment and I got on Pinterest or on Facebook, and I remember looking at this guy on whatever it was, and I screenshot it, and he looked like a whole GQ model. And in my mind, I was like, I'm not settling for anything less than what this guy is. Like, I'm talking about the energy, the way he posed, the way he dressed, where he was. He looked like he was in the mountains of like Mexico somewhere. So I automatically didn't know that I manifested that on accident. And I'm glad that I did do that. It was literally 2 weeks after the breakup. And so this guy, it was a long breakup. I had to go through, I mean, I think I got like an $8,000 of debt. And you know what? I always tell myself is there's no price on peace. So I didn't care how much it cost. I just wanted out. But I ended up getting blessed in return. And I remember adding me on Facebook. And I never respond to DMs. I'm never the one to be like, oh, like he's cute. I never paid attention to it. I just was like, whatever, another thirsty guy. So he adds me, he messages me. Then he gets flirty, and I'm like, this is just kind of not it, you know, like I'm not vibing with the vibes. Then I start drinking, and we're talking, and we actually have a lot of interest, common interest. And so he invited me out, and I was like, I don't think we should go out for drinks at night because I feel like I will make a mistake. You know, I need to help hold myself accountable. So I was like, we can do lunch. That's fine. So he met me, we did lunch, and we didn't even eat lunch. Like, we were just talking and talking and talking. We didn't even eat lunch. It was crazy. And I actually went over my lunch break, and I think I only had an hour, and I was like an hour and 15, and I was like, here's my number. Like, I'll see you again, whatever, right? So he properly asks me for a date, and he's like, I'd like for you to wear this, and I'm going to get you a tea, whatever. He came to my apartment at like 6:45 in the morning, delivered me a nice dress, and like delivered me some tea. And I was like,
Wait, wait,
I'm
wait,
gonna,
wait, 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 wait. He delivered you a dress for your first date?
well, something to wear along those lines, yes.
Oh, got it, got it, got it. That's right,
Yeah,
that's
I can't really say
right.
like. So he delivered that. I'm just gonna say dress, and then he
Yes.
brought me tea. And this is like even before I got up in the morning, and it was the day of our date. He believes that anytime he made a great decision, it always rained. And so there was no forecast of rain. He later picked me up and we went to sushi. I love sushi. He bought a bottle of champagne. It's like Thursday night. No one's even out. And it rained on us. I still, in fact, have the high heels from that date, and they are ruined from the rain, but I have not thrown
Oh,
them away because that's how much those heels mean to me. They're very symbolic. And so
oh.
it's super romantic. And, you know, time goes by, and he comes over. I invite him up to my place. I'm like, hey, come up. Like, I can't really go downstairs. I'm occupied. Come up. I was cooking, I think, flautas for him. And I don't remember. It was something like a very traditional dish to show him that I appreciated him, etc. What, right? You know? So he comes up. He's like, hey, can I use your bathroom? And I'm like, sure, go ahead. Well, in Texas, I'm not sure if anyone really knows this, but in most apartments, the closet is inside the bathroom, right? So he goes in there and he comes right out. I didn't hear flush. I didn't hear him wash his hands. And I was like, did you even flush? Like,
Cochino.
I definitely was like, what are you doing in my closet? Because I already knew what he was doing. And I was like, you didn't flush, you didn't wash your hands, what were you doing? And so later I come to find out that he went through my closet to see what kind of clothes I had. And he didn't see a lot of jeans. He didn't see a lot of flip flops. All he saw were like color coordinated high heels. And he knew he wanted a city girl because it was always his plan to move to New York. And so later, I'm like, wow, I can't believe you did that. But he was like, I love that I went into your closet and I didn't see any frumpy clothes because I didn't want that as a wife. And so he was almost sure that I was the one right away because he always knew what he wanted. And time passes by, we're dating, we're becoming a little more exclusive. And I'm scrolling through my pictures, and he kind of leans over. He's like, who's the guy? Like, is there someone you're not telling me about? Like, he's like, he looks like me. Who's the guy? And I was like, oh, it's just some handsome guy that I said that I wouldn't come close to settling for. And I showed him the picture. I don't want to dig and lose track of our conversation, but I'll bring it
Yeah.
up on the next one. And he's like, oh my gosh, that looks just like me. And I was like, wow, whoa, that does look like you. And so then it like came to my head. I was like, oh crap. Like I just realized we're 3 months in and I manifested him. Like this is insane. But I also knew what I wanted in my husband. I wanted him to have his own business. I wanted him to be successful. And I always was a suits girl. Like I never wanted to marry someone who wasn't in a suit. I always was very traditional. I wanted the James Bond. I wanted the very business, because I feel like when you dress a certain way, there's just a certain demand of respect you get. So I wanted that. And then I knew that I wanted in the future when my parents asked me in the past, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? What kind of car do you want? And that kind of got me ready and prepared for what I wanted in my future. And I remember telling my dad, I was like, I want a Range Rover. And my dad was like, well, you better marry someone that can get that to you, because he didn't believe that I could do that, like for myself. And so I was like, yeah, whatever. And sure enough, I had his Range Rover. But now later down the road, I have mine. And, like we have our it's crazy. You have to know exactly what you want so you can get it. So that all happened. Within 6 months, we were engaged.
Gosh, that moves so fast.
But we knew. It was so crazy. When I hate to say it because it's so cliche, but when you know, you know. Like you don't feel, there's no doubt in your mind that it's not the person. So you'll know. And he took me to New York. I had never been. He took me. I'd been,
He took you your first time to New York?
He was the first one that took me to New York, and we went, and he waited 3 days after the trip to ask me how I felt about it. And I was like, I never want to leave. And he was like, well, thank goodness, because if you would have said you didn't like it, I wasn't going to propose to you. This is before, but sorry, I'm mixing up the timeline. But yeah, that happened, and boom, we moved, and everything kind of fell into its place. We got married, and it rained on both of our, not only the wedding that we eloped to get married in Brooklyn, New York, but we also had a big wedding in March, and it also, I believe, rained in the morning. So, yeah.
Wow. So rain, you have a lot of association, like beautiful memories associated with rain. I like it.
It's our own
Fresh new
little,
beginnings.
there you go. It's our own little, like, we're going on the right path confirmation. And it's so
I love
crazy
that.
because if you don't know who you are and how to me, I'm like, how are you supposed to know what you want? And I knew very, very much, like, to the T what I wanted in my man.
So did you write it down? Did you write down every like quality you wanted in a man? I know you had the picture of what you wanted him to look like, but did you have like every, or do you just knew in your head? You like, I know what I'm looking for.
Yes, I very much knew what I was looking for, even though I never had a manly figure to portray it. I knew exactly what I wanted. Um, it's weird.
I have a question though, because I've heard this story before. I know others haven't, but there is, so I'm curious because you have somehow established a lot of self-confidence, and people who come from our background usually don't have that much self-confidence because trauma or one thing or another has really beaten us down and made us feel very insecure. And so there's this part in your dating journey that I think really shows how you had learned to love yourself and to prioritize yourself, even in the face of the man that you knew you were going to marry, the coffee shop. Can you please tell us about the coffee shop? I love this story.
Absolutely. So, in the midst of the breakup and stuff, and before we got engaged, we I was studying. For some reason, I thought I wanted to be a nurse after I had graduated, and I took a semester on, and it was in chemistry, and it was very tedious. It was very hard. So I have a lot of respect for nurses because I could never. But anyways, I was at this coffee shop. It's my favorite in Bishop Art. It's called La Reunion. So the coffee shop is a serious coffee shop. Everybody's working from home there or studying in the morning. And then like after 7 p.m. it turns into like a very cocktail vibe, happy hour, lights go down, like live music.
Bar vibe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So Carl would meet up with me after work to go and study because he had work to do too. He was always on his laptop. And I want to mention this. I was always on my laptop, and I remember something my mother told me that that never left me, but I remember one day I was eating with her at a restaurant and I had to have my laptop open, and she told me, she was like, you're always on your laptop. And I was like, whoa, like, it took me by surprise because I was like, you shouldn't feel that way with my computer. But anyways, it felt good to have a partner that felt and did the same things that I wanted because that was important to me. So he comes up, brings his stuff to work, and he's been here a few times. We've already had little dates here. But one day he wanted to pick something in my past and he wanted to argue over it. And I was like, I have an assignment due by 12. In my head, I was already like, I need to get this done. So he comes and he's like not in a nice mood. He sits across from me and he's like, hey, he asks me a question about my past. And I'm like, look, I legitimately do not have the time for it. I have a deadline tonight. If you want to know about that, we can talk about it after. But right now, I have other things to go through. Like, I need to get this done. You're not a priority. You're not. So he gets upset and he's like, he didn't get his way. So he like leaves. And then I guess he goes and takes a nap and he wakes up and it's from when he left, it was already like 6:30. And he woke up and it was like 10. And he was like, there's no way she's still studying. She's probably out talking to guys, right? So he gets in his Porsche sports car because he's probably feeling like a douche. Like, he's like, I'm going to go show her. He like pulls up, parks valet, whatever, right? Walks in and he's like, I'm not going to make it obvious that I'm here. At the time, I didn't even know about the other car. I didn't even know he had it. So I wasn't even paying attention, honestly. Like, I was so into my books. So anyways, he like peeks over. This is what he tells me. And he goes, sure enough, that is still on the computer. Like, so then he knew because it was already live music, drinks were flowing, everybody was drinking already. And he was like, oh my gosh, I felt so bad. So he goes and he sits next to me because he did not believe it. So he's like, I can't believe someone put their goals over me. He felt so like, I don't know, maybe,
Humbled.
yeah, like he was like, what the hell? I never experienced this. So then he gets there, and I'm already in a pissy mood because I'm like, you already distracted me from my goals, so I'm probably not going to pass this exam. So he comes and he's like, hey, and I was like, shut up, sit down. Like, basically, is what I didn't
You're
tell
not
him
on my
it.
good side right
Yeah,
now.
I was just like, sit down. Like, this exam is going to be done in 12 minutes, and you're just going to sit there. So he sits down and he's like opening his computer and he's just like, try not to make me mad and things like that. So then a few minutes pass by and I'm finished. Then I close the laptop and I'm like, what? He said, I'm sorry that I distracted you from your goals. I'll never do that again and I'll make sure to prioritize your dreams along with mine. Now I realize how important that is to you. And after that, we had drinks. But after that, like a few months would pass, and now we're married. And he tells this story all the time to my friends. He says, the fact that she put her goals in front of me was something that I realized that I did want in a woman because that's what I want instilled in my children. That's how I want my children to be raised, you know?
So that was kind of one of those defining moments where he was like, oh, this woman is so balanced and she knows what are priorities and, how to prioritize,
Exactly.
you know?
And it did humble him for being second because all the women thought, like, oh, he makes this much money, he drives this car, he travels all around the world. So he wasn't used to. I didn't care. Like, I used to count trash bags of money with my dad. Like, money didn't was not a purpose for me and him. Like, it was like, bro, like, I had a driver, a housekeeper. Trust me, I'm not after your money. I don't care if you have a different car. So the fact that I even treated him that way, I think it humbled him and it messed with his like, oh shit, like,
Ego.
yes, because all the girls that would go out with him would like wear their Chanel bags and their red bottoms and use him, and they would sleep with him within a week, and so he had very messed up relationship issues. So by the time he got to me, he was like, oh, this girl is no games, like she's all gas, no brakes.
I
Yeah.
love it.
And I didn't care, and I think he wanted me to move in with him within like 3 or 4 months, and I was like, nope, I just got into $10,000 in debt with some loser, and I'm not gonna do it again. And the next time I move in with a man is gonna be the next time I'm engaged. Like that, there's no more like this what is it,
Cohabitating.
cohabitating anymore. Like I'm not doing that just because that's what I saw my whole life. Like I'm done with that. Like you're either coming in with the ring and that's it, or get out. There's the door. I'm gonna hold it for you.
Now, here's another story, and this is so funny because you're probably going to trip out how much I listen to your stories and like remember every little detail. But this one was told to me by your husband, and there was one night we all went out with like a bunch of group of friends, and I won't say where we were, but it was a very sexy environment. It was fun. And I think you were dancing or you walked away for a second, and you and your husband and I were talking for a moment, and he shared the story of the night that he proposed to you. Not the proposal. I don't even know the story of the proposal. I've never heard that one. But after, I guess the night of the proposal, he said that he realized something in the way that you sleep. He said, when you sleep, previous to the proposal, you always used to like twitch or move or like a lot of nervous energy in your sleep. And he said that that was the first time he noticed that you slept soundly, was the night he proposed to you. And you
Yeah.
don't twitch or move. You had almost like this sense of peace. And I think that is so beautiful. But let me share how my heart took that, and it was
Oh.
hard to hear, because I remember saying this to your husband. It was like, that's what every girl dreams of, is to have a man bring them that kind of safety, that kind of security, that almost like he rescued you, he saved you.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, I have to be honest, I'm somewhat jealous, because no one has come to save me. And nobody has come and brought me that kind of peace. And I've had to provide that, and I've had to be my own knight in shining armor, and I've had to be my own peace and my own man and everything. And so that moment was very like bittersweet, because I was so happy you found it, but so sad for me that I hadn't, and and I'm sure there's a lot of single women out there that can resonate with this, where we've had to be this hyper independent woman, not because we want to. It's been out of survival. It's been out of necessity, and it's so hard to. It should be hopeful, but it's also painful to see others get what you want, and you're like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
Why can I find my knight in shining armor that's gonna bring me peace?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That hurts me. I almost got like teary-eyed because I felt that way too, and I felt like there was no match for me because I wanted the bare minimum, and I felt that that couldn't even be provided, and so I just never wanted to settle. But I do know there is something that you did for yourself when you were transitioning to going to school. I think you got out of a relationship and you chose your dreams over the typical let's get pregnant at 15 kind of thing. So, are you comfortable with sharing it?
Well, actually, this is perfect time to transition. So, I was going to focus on like, so I am still single, and a big part of my journey in my romantic life has been, we inherit a lot of the examples from our parents. And in my case, even my grandparents, I've had examples of men you could not trust. I had a grandfather that was an alcoholic who ended up dying very young, and then on the other side, I had a grandfather who was unfaithful and was never around. And then, come down to my mom's generation, she was a single parent, and my father was not involved in my life. So I have generations of women that basically have told me, you cannot trust a man, you cannot rely on a man, get your stuff together, be an independent woman, get your finances together, get your life together, because you cannot trust a man. They're going to leave you pregnant and single and by yourself. So take the man out of the equation and just get your together by yourself. And so this was the narrative that was constantly spoken to me since I was a child. So the thing that people don't realize is, this was their narrative, but it got put onto me. And so I took it on as if it was my own experience. And then I made it my own experience. And so then when I would go out into the dating world, all I would do was find
Holes in the
men
relationship.
men that were crap, basically, like men that had mommy issues, and they loved my masculinity and they loved my strong domineering personality. They're like, oh, like, this woman's going to take care of me, this woman is. And I ended up with a man that I would have to take care of, and so I ended up reaffirming those beliefs. And I got to a point where I was dating the same person in a different body every single time. It was just the same personality over and over. And so I reached a breaking point myself where I'm like, okay, something is wrong in me, like programming wise, and I need to see a therapist because I can't fix this. I read every book in the, every book I can think of. I've done everything. It was one thing to try to implement things that you learn in a book versus something that is there's programming that's wrong. So every time I would try to implement stuff, it was not authentic to myself, so it felt like I was faking it, and it was so exhausting because it wasn't who I was. I was just going through the motions of all of the things that I read in the book of like, this is how a high quality woman should act and this is how she should be. But what I didn't realize is until you become a high quality woman on the inside, everything you do is going to feel fake and it's going to feel forced and it's going to feel like a lie. So I put myself through a therapy and tried to realize, okay, where is this narrative coming from? How can I start healing myself so that I can have a confidence and a love for myself to realize that I don't need to seek validation externally. I don't need to have somebody save me. I don't need to somebody to come love me for me to feel whole and healed. And that honestly, it could take everybody different amount of time. It took me almost 2 years to finally have a full healed heart. But it was because of generations of trauma of men letting down the women in my family. But I will say you've got to put some ownership on the women as well. They selected these men.
Right.
So we as women have to take a little ownership in that is like, what are you doing? And you mentioned this earlier too, Angelica, when we were talking offline, is what is it about you that's attracting that kind of person? So what are you, so we this is where we have to take ownership, ladies, as like, what if we're attracting that person, there's something we're doing wrong. So we have to make sure that we are working on ourselves, building that confidence. And when you start radiating that confidence, you're not going to be able to attract the bum anymore. They're going to be
No.
intimidated by you. You're not on the same vibe. The bum can sniff out the weaklings. The bum can sniff out the ones that they can take advantage of. When
They
you're
can smell fear
They're
instantly.
like, oh, this is one I can manipulate. All right, let's
Yes. And
go.
it's like a whole pyramid scheme. They'll get you to rent them a car or a house, and they're like, they'll promise you the world, and then they end
Been
up.
there, done that, right, Angelica?
Yes, 100%. And what I was saying earlier on our call is like, I see a lot of relationships that end up in a total catastrophe because I always say this, but your relationship is a reflection of who you are. So whenever you choose someone, they're representing you, both of you. That is the image. Like you, a lot of people are like, you guys give off Melania and Trump vibes. They say that about me. And I'm like, it's controversial. But to me, I'm like, oh wow, that means I have a healthy, strong marriage because look how many tabloids they've been in. And I'm not a supporter of the dude or whatever, but um, yeah, it's a reflection of who you are. Like if they just got out of jail, what do you think is going to happen? If they've been in drugs or around drugs, what do you think is going to happen? Of course you're going to get cheated on. Of course you're going to get hit. Of course you're going to end up in a total miserable life. And you have to be careful with who you choose as your partner because that is a huge reflection of your relationship and where you are. And it can really show off a lot of your vulnerabilities, even if you don't want them to be seen. Like you need to be comfortable with dating someone that is going to only enhance your best features. I've gotten so good at it now that I'm like, I can see a couple and I'm like, that's a toxic relationship. And it's not to be judgmental or anything, but I'm like, shoosh, I can see it now. And shoot, it's a lot. It kind of triggers me because you're right. Like growing up with these women that didn't really take the accountability or the initiative to be like, you know what, this ends with, that's it. That it ends here. But instead they're like, oh, I have a kid with him, and they make all of these excuses, and oh, he still loves me, and oh, he cheated on me, but I'm still the number one. Like they'll make all these excuses when you could just simply walk away and have more peace and be able to raise your kids in a different environment because they don't know this, but your kids see everything and that's what they're going to be okay with putting up with.
Yeah. And to go back on what I'm trying to make sure I say this so delicately because my family does watch this show, and it's not that I'm trying to bash the women in my family. It's a lot has you don't realize that certain things get passed down to you. Certain things got passed down to my mother, and she did the best that she could. And then, that same narrative of survival got passed down to me. All they were trying to do was make sure that the next generation would survive. So this all came out of a place of love. So I just want to make sure that I reiterate that is it's not like they were trying to cause me harm. They were just like, this is how life has let me down, and I want to make sure that you survive and you have a better chance. And which they did. Because of this narrative, I became a very successful, very independent, very self-sufficient woman, but almost to my detriment now. But the great thing is, because of the fact that I realized certain things were not working for me and going to the right resources to work on them, I now feel like finding the right person is a lot more feasible now. And there's something so beautiful about how, like, you felt comfortable to say no, this is a priority. I am now able to do the same thing, which is so empowering, because before, when you don't get that love from the inside, and the second somebody gives it to you on the outside, you don't know how to prioritize your own goals over a man, because you're like, he's giving me love and I don't know when I'm going to get it again, so I have to jump when he says jump. But when you have your cup so full, if this person tells you, hey, I'm available now, but you're not, because this doesn't align with your schedule or your goals right now, you have to be able to say, I do want to spend time with you, just like you told your husband, I do want to spend time with you, but I have a deadline tonight. This doesn't mean that you're not valuable to me, but right now, I because of this deadline, I have to address this, and then we can go have our fun time after. So just learning how to be able to communicate like that, and learning how to prioritize things like that, and then to understand that in the process of putting yourself first and your priorities first, that will show you what he is about. If he rises to it and goes, oh my God, like, she's so ambitious, she really is about it, then I need to jump on board. And, because if she does this for her, imagine what she'll do for me. That's a high value woman versus a woman that's just going to jump at every whim. Like, where's her brain? Where's her ability to, where's her discernment? Where's her ability to prioritize?
Right.
That's an important quality to have in a woman, but you have to find that in a woman that is full, sturdy, steady, and fulfilled on her own.
Respects
So that's,
herself. And,
yes. So
yeah.
that's kind of like where I'm at now. So with that said, I can say dating is a lot more enjoyable now. The quality of men are much, much, much better. I have very fun dates and
Let's go. Find the
very
one.
very respectful now. And the great thing is, even if it doesn't work out, both parties are very respectful of, like, yeah, it's just not there, wish you all the best. And it doesn't have to be big drama, it doesn't have to be ugly and messy.
Toxic.
It's just two adult conversations, like, hey, no harm, no foul, we just
Yeah.
didn't click. And that is so nice, because in my past it's always been like, well, I'm in it now. I gotta be in it. I gotta stay loyal. And even though this doesn't work for me, and then it had to break up in a very, blaze of glory.
Yeah.
But now that's not my truth. And the beauty of it is, now dating is a lot more enjoyable, and I'm hoping that it continues to get more enjoyable, because I really do think that one day I will be a great partner to somebody. So,
Absolutely. And you can see it all over your face. You're fulfilled within yourself, and that's the best time to date, is when you are fulfilled and you know your cup is full, because you don't need it's not that you need somebody to get you further. It's just like, you know what, you are in your place, I'm in my place, and we're going to do this together. What could we achieve more together? And just because you're right, you have a fallout with a person that you don't match and mix with for a relationship, doesn't mean, and I think you might agree with me on this, with growing up the way that we did, because something didn't work out, we always identified any problem as a life threatening problem. Like, we always were like, oh, that's it. Like, we always blew it out of proportion because we didn't know how to handle problems that were life threatening versus problems that were not. Coming from
ooh,
all the
like
trauma.
everything, yeah, so everything was 110% problem. Like, we didn't know how to actually judge them.
100%. Like, I would
Ooh,
stress, I
so
just
black
learned
and
that.
white.
Right. I just learned that from my therapist because I've been doing twice a week because, I noticed there's still things I need to work in within myself that have nothing to do with my marriage, but with my family that I still have to work on. But my therapist he told me one day because I was crying and there was an issue. He was like, Angelica, this is not life threatening chaos. It's chaos, but it's not life threatening. And that's not the way you should address it. And that completely changed my life. Like it was just a switch. And I was like, oh, yeah, this isn't even life threatening. Why am I tripping? Like,
It just goes back to that programming until you can identify those little things, the programming runs you. And that's the part that feels so out of control and it's like so hopeless when it feels like everything is out of your hands. Running on that autopilot is the way I describe it. Because
and
that's
I,
what it felt like for the longest, is just running on this autopilot that didn't serve me.
And I think it's a lot of it had to do with our identity because we knew who our parents were, but we were headed towards another realm that they've never seen or experienced. So having that loss of identification when you do grow up and you do have the degree and you do have the six-figure earning job, you're a whole new person, and so you're not aware with how to handle where these new issues are going to grow into versus your survival ones. And
Ooh, that
you
is
know,
so good. Yes.
like if you don't, and part of that is knowing who you are, and if you don't even know who you are, how can you expect to know what you want or where you're going, you know so those are new things that you
to
have to work on.
add to add to that is, a lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of our programming is installed at like the age of 5, like by the age of 5. So the person running the show is like a 5-year-old in your brain. You're still functioning off of that programming, that scared programming, that heightened programming, especially if you had a lot of scary, unsettling things happen in those critical years, which Angelica and I have, and which a lot of people in our Latino community have, as sad as that is to say. But I mean, we've been exposed to domestic violence, death, poverty, sexual abuse. Like, you could imagine, like, we have seen it, exposed to it, and that is very, like, that gets imprinted on a brain very young. And then now you're trying to function as a normal adult off of the little 5-year-old programming.
100%. And you can't just aimlessly wonder because you're becoming a new person. And I always say this all the time, you don't accidentally just become a millionaire. And even the odds of being alive are 1 in 4 trillion. So you have to remember those things when you're going through a hard time and you're having a bad day. I always say, you know what, you're 10 times even more likely to win the lottery than to be alive. So do what you want with that information, right? Like, thug it
That's,
out.
yeah. Did you say thug it out?
Thug it out with my tea.
You're
Part
a
of it
thug
never
with
goes
tea
away.
now?
Yeah, but part of it never goes away. Like sometimes, I'm girly. I carry myself very gently and super classy. But there's sometimes where that vocabulary kicks in, and it's like, oh dang, I need to thug it out. Like, at least I still have some of it in me, and I know how to channel it.
It's so funny because you're very feminine, very gentle, very delicate. But when you're angry, which I've seen on your birthday, I remember this, like you were running behind for like a makeup appointment, the way you were yelling at your husband, you're like, "Hey, you, here, let's go. We're out the door in 2 minutes."
Yeah, and I felt bad. It maybe wasn't even him. It was like the lady that was with us. She was kind of slowing
Yeah.
us down. There was a lot of chaos going on, but poor husband, like I was like, andale, let's go real quick, and that's how we grew up. Like, if you weren't dressed by 10 a.m. and your bed wasn't made and the dishes weren't done and it wasn't swept and mopped, you weren't going. So that's what I instill in my family. I'm like, come on, like, let's go.
What I love, and this is definitely something I hope to find one day, is your husband loves every part of you, all sides of you. The feminine, the not so feminine, the ambitious side, everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And what a beautiful gift to know that somebody loves you for all of you. Like, that is truly a blessing, and I'm so happy you found it. And I mean, gosh, like, that's why I have felt so privileged to know you, to meet you, because you have re rewrote that story for you. Like what you were handed, you're like, throw that out the excuse me, throw that out the door, throw
That's
that
the
out the
word.
door, and we are going to write a new one, and it is going to be a beautiful one, and beautiful, like gosh, like parents incarcerated, and in the system, foster care, you turn that around to I have a master's degree. I married an affluent man that loves everything about me, even my ugly parts. And and now I have the freedom to start my own business.
Mhm.
Oh,
I
just
always almost say he married me for the cheese man, but that's to be, continued.
for another show. We could talk
He,
about that
yeah,
later.
he's ready. Like that's, I swear that's what fuels him. Like he'll be right there if I get a call. And he's like, "What happened? Who's in jail?" Like,
What's the drama?
oh man, but
Maybe
I
there wasn't as
appreciate.
much drama in his life growing up, and we are like burnt out on the drama. There
We
was
really
always
are.
drama.
Yeah, but I love you and I appreciate you for just saying those kind words to me because one day we're both going to be in the back of a yacht with both of our husbands drinking champagne and seeing the finest islands of the world. And I can't wait because that
I
man
can
that's going
see
to
it.
come and step up, he's going to be someone, I mean, I can't imagine. Like, and then someone that's you times two, like, ooh, y'all better watch
Ooh.
out.
Man, you don't even know, man. For the right man, you'll walk through fire for them. When somebody really has your back and somebody really supports you, you'll walk through fire for them. And now the way that I am built, the things I would do to make sure that he reached his level of success, as long as he supported me and making sure that I could be my best, there's no stopping. Like, I don't even, the way I look at a relationship is it's not me against you. It is us locking arms and against the world, So,
You're
does that make
powerful.
sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I can't wait to hear and see the one that has the courage to step up to the plate and, endure these challenges with you. Maybe they've done it and, you just become better together and you fight and walk through fire together. But
Yeah.
we're coming up on our time.
Yes,
What's your
yes.
song of the week?
Oh, I forgot about the song. Oh, okay, beautiful. I'm so glad you reminded me. Mine is Daydream from Lily Miola. And this one my sister sent to me after I had decided I was going to quit my job and pursue my business full time. And it basically, the song talks about how, when we're younger, we have all of these outrageous dreams and nobody ever says they're silly or wrong. But then we grow up and then we get scared and all these fears come in, and now we have plan Bs. And so this one is called Daydream.
Let's
How
see.
did we get here? Darling, don't quit your daydream. It's your life that you're making. It ain't big enough if it doesn't scare the hell out of
Oh, isn't that
That is
beautiful?
goosebumps. Please send it to me.
Don't quit your
Please.
daydream. And she says like it's probably worth it, like if it scares you. Like it has to scare you. That's why it's worth it.
That is
And
so cool.
my dream is scary. They're really big.
They say, yeah, if it doesn't scare you, they're not large enough. So kudos to
Thank
you.
you. I'll send
I
it
love
to you
it.
after.
Please
What's
do.
yours?
Let It All Work Out with Lil Wayne. I remember this song when I graduated with my bachelor's degree. I didn't even know I was going to graduate. I couldn't even believe it, sorry. I parked my car and I cried by myself for like an hour and on this song on replay because I was like, "Oh my gosh, I did it." Like that was my lottery ticket. That was my way out of the hood.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it. It'll
Make it
all work out.
let it all work out. It gets
Oh,
good.
let it all work out.
Yeah. And
Oh,
he
and who's
talks
this from?
about Lil Wayne, and he talks
Lil
about his
Wayne.
challenges, and that's my song. Like that,
Oh.
when I want to achieve something, that's the one I put on.
That's perfect. On that note, that's where we'll end. Guys, it'll all work out.
And if your dreams don't scare you, they're not large enough.
Yes. So right before we go, make sure that you've subscribed to our channel and you get notifications on so that you'll be notified every time we drop a new episode. Until then, love you guys and have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.